All right. Welcome to the June 27th Grants Pass City Council Workshop. And we're going to kick things off with a fun investment policy presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to go over the investment policy today. A little subject and summary. I'll go with a little bit of the background, as well as a summary of proposed changes that I have to the investment policy. The intent of these edits is to allow the maximum flexibility as provided by Oregon Revised Statute, or ORS, while still accomplishing the primary objectives of safety, liquidity, and yield. And it's important to kind of keep in mind.
For some reason, we're not sure. We've not seen this one before.
Is it because of...
Technical difficulties.
This is what you guys do to the new people, right?
This is the fun part. I think I'm okay to go on it. Is there an issue?
Oh, if you've got some other handouts too, and
No.
if you
We-
wanted to move another agenda item, like maybe have Joel's agenda item go first.
Yeah, is it just this presentation that's having an issue on the slide? We'll just wait a minute. Whenever you're ready, JC.
All right.
Well, I guess at this point I said we'd start at noon, so now we have to wait 5 minutes, huh? Can I uncall the recess? Everybody's, all right, let's uncall. Everybody's still sitting here, so I don't think anyone stepped out. Go ahead, JC.
Let's try this again. All right, so I'm going to be going over the investment policy today. The subject and summary, there's going to be a little bit of background. The summary of proposed changes that I have to the investment policy. Just wanted to let everybody know that the intent of these is to allow for maximum flexibility as provided by Oregon Revised Statute or ORS, while still accomplishing the primary objectives of safety, liquidity, and yield. Some of these are kind of oxymorons to each other, as liquidity and yield don't necessarily align. So coming up with a policy that's strategic as far as getting the maximum return, but also staying as liquid as possible to meet our financial obligations. And our relationship to council goals is provide cooperative shared leadership involving council, staff, and the community. And so this will be slide 3. Try and do that for you so we can stay on the same page. So a little bit of background of the investment policy. Per ORS, in order to be less stringent in certain areas, pursuant of ORS 294.135, the City of Grants Pass sent a copy of their 2010 policy to the Oregon Short-Term Fund, and then it was given their notes back, and there were just minor changes of that, and that was adopted on January 26th of 2010. And then there was another minor change in 2012 when the council readopted the policy. So we haven't seen an edit to this policy in about 10 years. And the next slide. So the summary of proposed changes, I'm going to go through them. There's kind of a list. The ability to potentially enter into a contract with an investment advisor and their roles and responsibilities. I know 2 directors ago, who was the person who wrote this policy, was an investment trader. I am not by trade. There are people that are smarter and better qualified to do those kinds of things for the city and have their pulse on the situation. There are more investment types allowed under ORS 294, as well as updated prohibitions from ORS 294. So adding some of the ones that I'm most familiar with as far as corporate indebtedness and municipal debt that are both allowable under ORS. So corporate indebtedness, to the layman, seems like I am day trading, and that is not the case. Corporate indebtedness is a specific kind of corporate debt that is issued, and there's a limited amount of corporations that we can actually purchase from. So I put on the dais an example of the city of Corvallis, and the list is very short. And they actually, because I worked for this entity at the time, they went one step further and they crossed a couple more off of this list, and that's what that note at the top is as far as no fossil fuels. So that only crossed off Chevron and by association, Toyota. Later on, off this list, IBM fell because their credit rating went down. So again, there's not a long list to go through. The city of Portland took this one step further and took off Walmart as well. So there are some new terms and investment type definitions as far as how the ORS reads. I'm proposing a maximum maturity of 5.25 years, where it currently is at 3 years or 36 months. The intent here is to be at actually 5.0, but this is a quirk that came up in another entity that I worked for where we tried to buy a 5-year maturity. But you have to be several days in advance to make those purchases. So if that came available on July 6th and I tried to purchase it today, technically it's longer than 5 years. And so this allows a little bit for that flexibility to go kind of over by policy. But the intent is to just have 5-year maturities on there. Some other summary of proposed changes. So we have overall liquidity, keeping the 15% available immediately, changing the current 70% available within 360 days to 25% available. Again, not necessarily going to be there in practice, but giving that flexibility. and then 100% within 5.25 years. Now, in looking at our current cash and investments balances, we're about $100 million, a little bit over. So having $15 million day in and day out, that's what this would require, and have at least $25 million on hand within a year. The weighted average maturity, moving it from 1.5 years to 1.75. So even though I've reduced the requirements as far as the 25% within a year, the weighted average maturity is still going to keep a lot of the investment on the front half of that 5 years. And then there's also maximum percentages for total pooled operating funds by investment type that align with ORS 294.035, which right now the current policy has a little bit more stringent or more restrictive language in there, where this just aligns it with ORS. There's some other minor language changes and how it reads that I'd put in there as well. An example is when something occurs, it says that the finance director needs to do corrective action. So I'm just going to put a caveat on the end of that, if necessary. Now, in an example of where I was working at the city of Corvallis, IBM downgraded. We didn't necessarily have to sell the investment because IBM was still considered a good company, that it was going to mature and it would be fine based on the information we were getting from our investment advisors at the time. So again, just changing little language to make sure that it reads and interprets the way I think we would want to practice. And then the call to action, moving this to the July 20th to give you guys time to give me feedback and input of what you would like to do or what you'd like to see or what you'd like me to change. And then the call to action date obviously would be July 20th to bring you these edits forward. So
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Go ahead, Rob.
Very quick question. You mentioned that the city of Portland removed Walmart as someplace they wanted to invest. Do you know an explanation on that? Or?
Yeah, so that was actually a big topic in the state at the time when they did that. I think it was like 5 years ago. Walmart is seen as maybe not local supportive and potentially taking small business activities away. And so that was the path that they were going down. It's a slippery slope. They were coming up with criteria at the time to grade these, where Walmart, yes, they may seem like the evil empire, but they actually do like local things as far as grants and things when they do move in. So everyone else in the state kind of paused when Portland kind of started going down that road.
Thank you.
Other questions? Brian?
Yeah, thank you. So regarding the overall liquidity schedule, the current policy says 70% available within 360 days, and the new policy says 25% available within a year, so essentially the same. And then 100% in 3 years currently, and then 100% within 5.25 years with the new policy. So after a year, is the remaining 75% not available until that 5.25 years, or is there like an incremental availability?
So every month when we report it, it's still the same requirement of that 70, which would change to 25%. Does that make sense?
Could you say that a different way?
Yeah, so right now, if we had May's report, right, that would be the standard as far as what we need to hit. And then June 30th happens and I report June's numbers, the same standard applies. So it's a rolling ratio, I guess, or percentage. Does that explain it better?
So if we took out 25% after a year, that means after another year, we could take out another 25%?
No, it's the same 25% the entirety. So
Okay,
if,
so
let's
you
say,
could only take out 25% and then you kind of have to wait until the full maturity date.
So I would have to, at any one point in any day, have $25 million that needs to mature within 1 year at all times,
Okay.
approximately.
So is that, would you see that as more liquid or less liquid than our current policy?
It would be less liquid, but it's to hopefully align with some other larger projects too that are out further. And so if we know that we're saving money off to the side, that is more than a year, then this gives us that allowability and that flexibility to get that maximum investment return for those monies that we are setting aside.
Okay. So the beginning slide says the intent of these edits is to allow for maximum flexibility. I guess the intent behind the flexibility would be towards returns for future projects and not around liquidity.
Correct. As
Okay.
well as align with more ORS language that has higher amounts than in our current policy.
Okay, I just have one more. Regarding the ability to potentially enter into a contract with an investment advisor, do you have any kind of estimate as far as like costs associated with that?
Yeah, from the last organization I worked with, it was about $30,000 a year, which we would do 5-year contract with a potential to renew, just kind of like just like an auditor's. And so again, it would be a term, a period, and then we go out for RFP.
Okay, is that like a flat rate or is that based on performance?
I've seen it work different ways, but normally in this segment, they do a flat rate based on your portfolio size.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Joel?
I'm not a subject matter expert, but I was just wondering, in terms of rising interest rates, a lot of times the short-term investment, you put your money into short-term because, 30 days from now, you'll get a higher interest rate. So I'm sure you've thought about that in terms of the strategy. How does that play out for us?
Yeah, so obviously you're right. In rising rates, you want to stay shorter and more liquid, but conversely, when rates start to fall again, you want to be a little bit longer. And so again, adding that 2 more years to make it 5 years is to basically play through the valleys of the interest rate. Yeah.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, well, again, this will come up on July 20th at the business meeting, so if you have any questions between now and then, you know where to find JC. We are going to make a change to our agenda. We have several guests here for the Exploring Homelessness Workshop report, so we're going to put that next, and then we will come back to the Welcome Center. So Joel King is going to lead this presentation.
So we're going to actually have different presenters than me present that, and so if they could come up front here, and while you're doing that, I will just explain a little bit and introduce the topic. Your first slide is a series of circles, and that's by design. I guess everybody can see them except me. So with those circles, throughout history, there's been a lot of government that has functioned in the realm of a circle. So you look at King Arthur and the Round Table. You look at Jesus Christ and his disciples and how he did it. You look at the Jewish nation back in Israel. You look at the Navajo nation today and the Sioux tribe and how they govern. And they all govern with a circle where everybody is sitting around the table and everybody's listening to each other and everybody says their piece. And so the workshop is designed after that mode of interaction. And that's what we did. So we had about 30 people meet, 35 actually, and a lot of people, most of them, if not, well, not all of them, because they had some conflicts, but everybody stayed for 2 days, which was a compliment. We need to honor Mike Lund, the facilitator. He's done this with other communities and conflicts, and actually the role of the workshop is to confront the conflict in a healthy manner or confront the issue in a healthy manner where you have a difference of opinion and that everybody has a chance to say their piece. So with that, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to ask each of the participants to introduce themselves. And then we're going to do some reading of what you already have. And the reason I'm going to do that is not because you didn't already read it. What we're going to be reading are people's words. And they need to hear their own words in the community because they're the ones that will make it happen. And so if you can bear with me, and if we take too much time, I'll cut out the last document. So that's what we're about. So a quick introduction, I'm Joel King. Down here, I am not a member of the council, I'm a citizen. I work with 35 other people and invested 2 days of my life in that. And I'm here to facilitate them giving you their words. And how do I feel about it? I feel it's an honor. So if each of you could quickly introduce yourself, what your relationship to the workshop was and how you feel about it.
My name is Brian Boteller. I'm the Director of Resident Services for the Grants Pass Gospel Rescue Mission and the Executive Director of the Rock Food Pantry. I'm also on the board of the Sobering Center, the Grants Pass Sobering Center. And I thought the meeting was great. 35 seemed a lot closer to 50 to me in my, seeing all that many people together, all talking, that was quite impressive. A lot of different ideas represented, but a lot of commonality as well. And I thought it was a great place to be and a great honor to hear everybody else share what they had to say. And so it was good. Yep.
I'm Kelly Robinson, and my husband and I own Robinson Orthodontics here in town, a small business, and I'm also the chairman of the Addictions, Mental Health, Public Health Advisory Committee for the county and city. They work together, and I also was honored to be a part of this workshop. We missed you. We wish that you had been there. We learned a lot. We learned that we do have a lot of commonality. We learned that, as you are well aware, it's a very complicated issue that has many layers that can't be fixed easily with just legislation, that we do have to come together as a community. And I also was really honored with who came in the community. We have some amazing people who live in Grants Pass who really love it and are here to stay and are super hopeful about it. And I was very honored to be a part of that. Thank you for having us today.
You know me, I'm Valerie Lovelace, but I also am a community member who has been concerned and worked with many organizations over the last 5 years to try to solve this. And as Kelly said, it's very complicated, and I think we on the council all understand that. In the workshop, I actually did not have the opportunity to work directly. I was a facilitator, but I was absolutely in awe at the number of community people that were there, that showed up to be a part of this conversation, and how much they cared, how much there was a compassion for trying to find a solution and a community effort to move forward to solve it as a community. So it was an honor to be there. Once again, I was totally in awe of the community members who showed up and who was there, and the active listening that they all partook in. It was really nice.
I'm Kurt, but you knew that. It was a decent couple of days. It was a good group. Results, we'll see.
Okay, excuse me, Ryan.
I was just going to say, Kurt wins the most summary shirt in the room award as well. Good job, man. I like it. Sorry.
Okay, come on, give Rob some props. So Brian, you did introduce yourself, correct?
I did. We're ready to read?
Okay, so we had policemen there, we had people that were homeless there, several different ones. We had Rogue Retreat there, Gospel Rescue Mission, we had housewives there, we had people on all different sides of the issue. We had the faith community there. And as we walked through it, this next collective statement, and you need to know what a collective statement is before we read it to you so that your interpretation can be appropriate. These collective statements include all the statements included by the participants that were written on 3x5 cards or charts, every single word from everyone, from the individual participants. They've been compiled into paragraphs of similar topics, but clearly they do not represent a consensus. We did not reach a consensus, so not everybody agrees with everything that's in these collective statements. In fact, these people, as they read it, they may read something they don't agree with, but they'll read it because of their respect for the other community members and the need to be heard. As we go through that, we can reach consensus on going forward, and this is just a first step. They are not prioritized in any way either, and the purpose of that is to have been created following a deep look at the situation, the worst and best outcomes, and other facets. People examined their personal beliefs, because it drives their behavior, and what personal beliefs were working for them. What personal beliefs do I have that are working for me, and what personal beliefs are not working for me? And then probably even more important than that, what personal beliefs do I need to foster to be successful in addressing this issue? So then our first collective statement is, what is the best possible outcome of investing 2 days in this workshop? This is the beginning of a shared community vision on the topic. And so if we have, as a community, have a shared vision, it is very powerful moving forward. With that, I'll turn it over to the participants in their own words.
We have real communication with real solutions that we create awareness, become proactive, build community relationships, and respect others, and that start down a path, a positive path, that will help us build stronger community with stronger leadership.
We work together to develop action items and find solutions. We build a sense of partnership from various factions and community to work together for overall good of the community and homeless population. That all will work together for a solution. All knowledge in the room would come together and not become compartmentalized.
We find a solution to Riverside Park issues and help people that want to be helped find an answer for what's left. We find a way to meet the requirements needed so the parks can be free for all in the community to use. Our parks will once again be a place for all to enjoy in the manner they were intended. Parks are enjoyed by all people.
Those that need help and want help receive it. More people are housed and employed and are healthy. What causes of homelessness are identified and effectively treated and prevented. Businesses grow and have a healthy workforce, and we have a sustained effort for a vibrant community that is effective, compassionate, responsible, and accountable.
We will come up with a community development solution that eliminates urban camping in our city while enabling the homeless to leave homelessness. A plan to bring community together to each other in the livability of Josephine County.
Solutions will be identified and actions to implement will take place. To more fully understand the root of the problems, get homeless population off of public areas, help people become more safe, sufficient, continue charity without enabling, have a more effective voice with state legislative process and the judicial system.
Law enforcement is given opportunity to do their job and trusted by the citizens to fairly handle incidents as they arrive. That we will find a good balance between compassion and accountability. That we identify specific dual actions that will give the homeless population what they need and want, and that give the residents of Grants Pass an environment that they want and deserve. Get children and youth off the streets and set them up for success. We arrive at a workable solution or solutions to help all people to achieve the highest potential and live healthfully, safe, and secure housing.
that Grants Pass develops and implements a plan that provides housing with low barriers for everyone in the community, that services are available to those who need it, and that we, as a community, recognize our shared humanity with those suffering homelessness. Life will be rescued and restored, and we gain a recognition that we need a cooling center, that I no longer have to counsel suicidal seniors who are homeless and helpless. We identify city-owned properties to develop a community center that will serve shelters in and out of our wards.
Recognize and support the homeless solutions we already have in place in Grants Pass. Address short-term and long-term solutions to houselessness and homelessness with infrastructure to sustain the solution. Spark positive movement and solutions we can all support to address local homelessness challenges.
Develop a viable action plan. Open up your heart and mind to someone who you thought was an enemy or a person you truly didn't know or understand. Best positive outcome would be to build empathetic solutions to the issue. We decide to move forward on a path or plan that is informed, supportable, humane, compassionate, efficient, and effective that will offer a path out of homelessness, saving lives and ensuring the highest and best uses of community resources, such as parks, hospital, vacant land, empty buildings, and schools. The best would be that we would have a plan moving forward, at least next steps, and that we make progress.
That our initiative creates positive and impactful change that aids in bolstering current infrastructure in our community, while also creating new and effective solutions to the problems we are facing. I also would like to ensure that everyone who entered this discussion leaves feeling as if that they made an impactful difference.
Increase understanding of issues leading to greater collaboration, spirit, and community unity. We all come together and put our personal biases aside and leave here with a handful of doable solutions that benefit our whole community. Realistic solution with proposals and a plan outline. As a community, we come up with a solution backed by everyone that benefits all parties and values each other's thoughts.
Communication, consensus of solutions, and energy and drive to complete them. Consensus on realistic solutions to our homeless situation. Find that people think outside the box, that ideas presented have the potential to be the solution, that the group can conclude with a path that brings solutions that they can enact promptly. The conclusions of the 2 days ends with a positive focus to explore every issue, to come to a common ground in action and solution, to move quickly as possible, as problems are getting worse, don't want to lose our town.
We use this process to tackle other local problems sets in the future, that we problem solve together around a solution to decrease homelessness and learn from one another while here. Learning the positivity in each individual, carrying new passions or ways to address and solve the homelessness. Learn how to better listen.
The best possible outcomes are future imagined events. They haven't happened. They may be strongly felt in the present. I have to emphasize they haven't happened. Most people, many people, have not experienced best outcomes. Like worst possible outcomes, they can only imagine them. They can also become self-fulfilling prophecies when worked towards by people in a shared vision by the community. Best outcome statements can become the foundation of creating purpose and vision, which is an essential part of community leadership for groups. That wasn't my words. I got those from a textbook. Okay, if Aaron can get this next one up, and
I think we're,
And then whether we do the third one or not, depending on how much time,
yeah.
this one, behaviors. So one of the things that's important is we all come up with a chain of events that result in how we think the world operates. And sometimes that works well for us, and sometimes it does not. And so on this particular issue, where we confront each other and we see people with differences, it was amazing to me how many people at the workshop that I never would have suspected have actually been homeless themselves. And they're both what would previously be seen as pro and con. They're on both sides of the issue. I mean, we had housewives that had been homeless with kids. We had other folks that maybe have lost their kids temporarily, or maybe permanently. And then we've had some people that have lost their mothers, or that their mothers have not functioned very well. So it's a process that has affected us all, and it affects our beliefs on what things work and what don't work. So as we talk to each other, everyone has a story to tell, and everybody has different beliefs. And we all examined our own beliefs, not what you believe. We examined what I believe. And then we put that down on a piece of paper of what beliefs do we have that aren't serving us very well, and what new beliefs do we need to foster both as an individual and a community. So again, this is not a consensus statement, this is a collective statement of what new beliefs we need to foster in Grants Pass to help solve the issue of homelessness.
Togetherness. Teamwork makes the dream work. The community can do this. Achieve best outcomes, confidence, and focus, coming together as a community and working for the success of our community as a whole. Be more active in who we elect as leaders. New motto, let's do it. Cohesive community effort is required to improve the community.
Foster individual and community positive relationships and interactions, community-wide education, the WISE data points, community. We need to add an attitude of action, self-efficiency, and confidence. If we don't believe that our actions can be beneficial, if we don't act upon these beliefs, the problem will continue to stagnate and fester. Volunteer to get services, serve others in exchange for help. Some new ideas we can add to be successful would be to have empathy and understanding that we aren't the same. We all have obstacles to overcome, and we can either learn from it or run from it.
Seeing folks as individual humans with a story rather than those homeless. The most important belief to prospectivize when approaching this problem is that the people in the circumstances are just as human as everyone in this room. When we lose sight of the humanity of these people, we lose key attitudes towards effective solutions. Concepts and empathy and compassion are vital to ensuring these people can be successful. Each person has their own story regardless of their housing situation. Talk to homeless people. See them as complete people with complex needs just like you. They could modify how they treat the homeless just because they have no home. Doesn't mean that they aren't trying their best at bettering themselves.
Trust in evidence-based approaches that may be different from your perception. This goes for me too. Not punishment, but discipline, so others don't have to carry the whole. Making people accountable and responsible for their behavior. Tough love. That people need to be accountable for their actions and behaviors. Interfacing with people who want to change their life course for the better. Do not pursue a course of enabling. If the road sign says dead end and you need a through street, don't go there. Self-defeating. There exists other solutions than just what I think are the right answers.
More access to services, mental health, transitional housing, self-reliance courses on money management, job success, and basic self-care. Understanding the challenges of drug use, the many paths to drug use, understanding others' paths and general empathy, and eliminating otherness. Barriers include funding, location, public perception, hopefully turn from negative to positive.
Taking time, not just at times public meetings with only 3 minutes to talk, but to really understand from both sides, open, respectful dialogue like today's format, open mindset for alternative solutions. Government is not the answer to this problem, accepting the ands, recognizing it isn't an or, the belief that we can't solve or some of the homeless issues needs to stay out the door.
That homelessness and houselessness is a much larger problem with varying levels of need and needed resources. Once housed/sheltered, they are able to work on their other needs. Training 100 volunteer mentors to come alongside those needing help for 1 to 2 years who will work with folks in existing programs like the Mission and Rogue Retreat.
We need to focus on defining our goals and necessary specific metrics to determine success. We must develop objective standards for the kind of help given, along with reasons for the standards. We should publish the standards we develop. This will let the public see new outlook and to be excited about the change, to be a part of the change, that the solution is possible and may need to be as complex as a problem, but that we can do that. That we need to be creative in our solutions. Helping can teach others to help themselves. More open-minded efforts, not a one-size-fits-all approach. Help can be scary.
Educate the public about who the homeless are and why it is beneficial to the community to support and assist them. Truly listen to the homeless to find out what needs they have and can we mutually meet and solve their needs. Realization that many homeless are the victims of circumstances and events beyond their control. That we are neighbors with people who are without housing and they are members of our community. Assume
is now joining.
Assume these people want help as bad as they need it. Assume they can achieve success if we extend the proverbial olive branch. Every person deserves dignity. We could be them.
So that's a good start on a community vision statement. We need to obviously move forward with that and refine that as we go forward, and we will. The last thing I wanted to share with you was words without action are not necessarily effective. And so we're going to be meeting this next month, and we're going to be reviewing this next document, which is a list of potential strategies that we can use moving forward, or that we need moving forward. I just lost all my speakers. That's listed there. They're not prioritized. I think in the sake of time, we'll let you read those on your own. But there are specific strategies moving forward that we will be refining. We do have what's the name of that software? Somebody help me. Begins with an S. Slash. Where, we got over 70 nonprofits in this community working on this problem. 70, at least. And I know there's more than that because when I saw the list, there was some that weren't included. So as we move forward, we need a common community forum to exchange ideas, and we have that in Slash. So it's a trail of consciousness where everybody can communicate with everybody else, and there's been a lot of things put on there already that are very useful. And so as we meet together to discuss the specific strategies moving forward, we'll keep you informed and just let you know where we're at and what's going on. Well, do you have any questions for the participants?
Thanks, Joel. Does anybody have questions? Some of you were there. I guess, Joel, I just wanted you to kind of expound, this is not an official city committee, so it's a group of citizens that are coming together to work on this issue, and I guess what is your hope for the council's involvement?
So I think there's several functions. You remember that first slide where we had different circles? And those circles intersect. And so some of those tasks are shared tasks within the circles, and some of them are exclusive tasks by one circle or the other. And so if you look at, for example, affordable housing, that's kind of a shared circle. I mean, we had a faith-based group come before us that did something on that. We've talked about that with urban renewal funds or with ARPA funds, with that task. And so as we move forward, depending on the task, there'll be some tasks that the synergy between the community and its government can help the community achieve its goals and its vision for the homelessness. If we move ahead without that, then there's an old saying, when you're firing a gun, you load it, you aim, and then you shoot. Well, we have a tendency to get in such a rush that we load the gun, we shoot, and then we aim. And so then we go back and we do it again. And then we do it again, and then we do it again. And it's good for the deer. but you know, in terms of the efficiency of the effort, redoing things 5-10 times doesn't help the community as we move forward. So we need to, and this is not a gun, it's not a violent thing, but in terms of the analogy, we need to load the gun, we need to slow down a little bit, we need to aim as to where we're going and the specific strategy items moving forward. We need a shared vision, and then we need to get it done. We need to shoot. So there's one thing, if I can remember it, and bear with me if I can't, it talks about leadership. And there's leadership within the community. There's also leadership on the council, and it can come from various different things. There's no exclusive way where leadership comes. One of the things about leadership, they need a vision. Leaders have vision. And so when you look at those best outcomes, that's a vision. And they can be very powerful. You can see the people here today, they didn't come here to waste their time. They came here because they believe in that vision. The next thing is we need to have integrity. Leaders have integrity. And so integrity is what I do in private, I do in public, and what's on the inside, it's also on the outside. And so as we go through in this effort, we need to make sure that we have integrity. Next thing we need to do as leaders is we need to prioritize. When we prioritize, we say, okay, there's some low-hanging fruit out there that's already begun. One nice thing about this process, as people examine their beliefs and their examples, they start to implement it without your permission. And several of those things have already started to happen. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way things happen. But as we move forward in our group, we'll prioritize those strategies and break into small groups and see where they're at. And let me see if I can remember the last thing about leadership. I should have brought my notes, shouldn't I? Just give me 10 seconds. Leadership is also self-aware. That's the fourth thing. And so we need to be aware of ourselves. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Who are we? Leaders know who they are as we move forward. So those four things, I think, are important for the council, and they'll also be important for our community as we move forward.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rob?
If questions are done, I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay.
Joel, I want to thank you for organizing this and being the impetus that made this group happen. And I'd like to thank the people who spoke today. I'd also like to add that for people that didn't see the council workshop in March 22nd, 2021, we had a 2-hour presentation where the director from Rogue Retreat in Medford came and presented to council and took questions. The urban campground director, Justin, also came and took questions from the council. Sergeant Kirkpatrick from Medford PD came and made a great presentation that really, I think, was very eye-opening for us on the council as far as the Medford PD perspective on the Rogue Retreat facilities in Medford. Overall, I think probably what was shocking for many is to find that essentially criminal activities and behaviors seem to diminish in the neighborhoods immediately surrounding the Rogue Retreat facilities in Medford. And I read actually a letter from the Medford Police Department that said the exact same thing. So for people that didn't see that workshop, because we don't really want to, as Joel was saying, I mean, we don't really want to have to go over that time and time again. I remembered most of what was there, but many of you might not have seen that presentation. But that was March 22nd, 2021, I believe. Let me just check that. Yeah, March 22nd. So you can go back on the city website and watch that 2-hour presentation because it answered a lot of questions for me. It also set a tone kind of for my mindset on the issue. And I was listening to people who have much more experience in the issue than I have. So it was really helpful. So if Brian or Kelly haven't seen that workshop, I would advise that just because, I mean, Brian, you could probably write a PhD thesis on this subject, I realize that, but there may be things specific to our local and specific to Rogue Retreat that you might not be aware of if you haven't watched that workshop. So I would definitely advise that anybody who is trying to be part of this solution as we move forward to not have to take steps backward and repeat issues. That was a really informative, it was really helped me anyway, that's for sure, and I think it helped many of the other counselors and anyone who watched that workshop. So, and again, you can access that on the city website. And thank you for coming today and for doing the 2-day deal. I would have liked to have been there. I had to work that week as I had taken time off the prior week, and I had the next week I had scheduled off, and there was no way I could get out of working that full week. So that was, but anyway, thank you for coming today. And thanks again, Joel.
Joel?
I just wanted to thank the people that presented and also the people that came here that participated in the workshop, and also our 2 facilitators, Aaron and Valerie, because they kind of stepped out on, that made them feel a little uncomfortable. And then last of all, Mike Lund, who said he'd do this for free. We paid him, but probably not enough. I don't think we even covered his expenses, but they all did a great job, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks to all of our guests today for participating in that and for presenting to us today as well. We appreciate hearing from you. All right, next up, back to the Welcome Center. So Jason is coming up. We are talking about the Welcome Center downtown at 6th and G and where to put a couple of portable, well, they're permanent toilet facilities downtown. And you're welcome to stay, or you can leave as well.
It's going to be a great presentation. Mayor and Council, thank you for the time today. I did want to note also that Chair of the Historic Buildings and Sites Commission, Ward Warren, is here with us today and would like a moment at the end of the presentation to address the HBSC comments. So I provided 2 documents for you on the dais. The first, of course, is the hard copy of the presentation. The second of which is actually the verbatim minutes from the HBSC meeting, where they took a look at the suggestion of adding some garage doors. And the last page of the minutes is an email from Chair Ward Warren from the HBSC. And so with that, I'm going to launch in here. Subject and summary is just to get council direction so that we can move forward with the exterior remodel options, and then also to get some direction for final placement of the downtown loos. And you can see the relationship to your council goals. So this presentation is going to be very, very brief. We have talked about this quite a few times. This is the original concept that was presented to you that had support from the Historic Buildings and Sites Commission. And during our discussion of that, council suggested that maybe we look at the potential of adding maybe some roll-up doors, which would provide some additional options for that. So say on a First Friday, we could throw open 2 giant roll-up doors, have the traffic flow through that building, really invite people in as a more inviting. We did get our architect to do a very quick mock-up. Please keep in mind, this was a very, very quick mock-up that they did for free. So we're only showing it on one side of the building. It would actually be symmetrical to where it would cover both bay doors. Just so that we could get a sense of what that would look like from the front. And I did present that to the Historic Buildings and Sites Commission. And as I said, I did provide you with the draft, and those are the draft verbatim minutes that are generated from an online service. In general, the comments were not favorable, and I'm subtitling here, not here. It's going to take a little bit to get used to. Some of the comments were, it looks like a fire station or a garage. It does not look historical. It is not user-friendly for people. To dead set against them. It was all over the board. The general consensus at the end was to allow the renovation. The HBSC would help the council to just ensure that the color and choice materials, if this is the direction that the council chose to go, but they were not supportive of the option in general. So some other considerations, it does offer the potential for events to easily flow through the Welcome Center. Passers-by will be able to easily see through the large glass into there to see if anything's going on. However, some downsides might be that the garage doors might let in additional noise and environmental, and may create some potential weatherization issues down there. Just some considerations for your consideration. There's a lot of consideration there. So we need direction to move forward. And so with that, I kind of turn it back to you to finish this, although I do defer to Chair Warren if he would like to speak to you. The options are really to continue with the remodel as depicted in the original drawing number 4, or continue with the remodel utilizing the roll-up doors. And with that, I'm going to pause here and we'll go on to the downtown Luz, if that's okay with you, Mayor.
Yeah, was Ward going to speak on both topics, or are we just covering the one? They're not exactly related. Council, would you like to continue just with the Welcome Center or go forward with the Luz? Welcome Center, let's stick with Welcome Center for a minute here. Ward, please come forward and tell us about the Historic Buildings Commission.
Ward Warren, I'm the chair of the Historical Building and Sites Commission. We are your advisory commission for matters such as this concerning historical buildings and sites, which this is located right at the entrance to our National G Street Historic District. Basically, the commission doesn't just operate on whim or subjective opinion. We do have guidelines, and basically we have criteria that we operate on and that we look at, just like the Planning Commission does. So some of the things that we look at in a situation like this is style, compatibility, authenticity, and functionality. And I want to say that virtually everyone downtown is happy that you, as a council and staff and mayor, are supportive of remodeling the Welcome Center, recognizing its importance to downtown and the city, and remodeling it and making it more functional. So that's all good. But as far as style and compatibility, that building was the Ben Franklin Bank, and it's a colonial style building. And roll-up garage doors, you're not going to find them on a colonial style building. maybe in Bangladesh or somewhere, I don't know, but not in Grants Pass or the Northwest. They just aren't really, they don't go with the style of a building with columns that colonial style is. And so they're not really compatible with the building, nor are they compatible with the historic character of the neighborhood. And then as far as functionality, we look at functionality, and if there was a really good reason that those doors would provide some extra benefit for downtown, we would say, hey, if that's a decision you want to make and you think it's that important, go ahead and do it. However, we would advise against it for all the reasons I just mentioned. And plus, in addition, last week I got a hold of one of the employees, Kate Bortels, who's one of the employees and has been for years at the Welcome Center. And I asked her what she thought, and she said, oh, no. She said, we never leave those doors open. And she said, basically the amount of dust and road grime and toxic fumes that come in there are just overwhelming. And I can tell you, having a business half a block away on 6th Street, that that's absolutely true. The dust and road grime is constant. You pretty much have to, just from people coming in and out the door. So you never leave the door open, and yeah, the fumes can get really, really bad. So I think those are legitimate concerns, since you're going to have staff people and so forth that are working in there. And then as far as the idea of having people, like, say, perform, a musician or a band or something, perform outside, or perform inside or outside. I mean, for years pre-COVID, bands and musicians performed right outside, set up a speaker or two, and performed in front of the building or on the side, which actually draws a lot more attention. So that would be our take on it. I mean, if you have to do it, we don't want to stop the process, but we don't think the garage, while those style doors would be appropriate on some buildings, we don't believe that they are on that building. Or functional, maybe not a good idea for that reason either. So, and then as far as the restroom part, I know there's been, because I watch all the workshops, and I know there's been extensive conversations, and I think having 3 restrooms is really ideal, accessible to the public. But Kate did, I mentioned it to her, and she said, boy, the last few years had been such a nightmare of people, flushing clothing and all kinds of other crazy stuff, and spending a lot of time in there. And her concern, she said, now it's actually, for the last couple of years, it's worked good having, the outhouse out there, and that, when tourists come in and they ask to use a restroom, if it's available, the interior restroom, she lets them use that. And then when it's not available or after hours, people understand that and they use the porta pot. But she was concerned about, the upkeep of the other restaurant rooms and what happens if it's, gets back to that situation where it's a problem. The cost of cleaning, the cost of plumbing, the cost of whatever. And so my concern there is, I know for a long time there was the consideration to have a Portland loo there by the Welcome Center. I still think that that's a good idea, because it's a 24-hour, basically much more welcoming, more attractive, and virtually indestructible kind of a facility. So I still think that that would be a good spot for it. Or the alternative, if the 3 bathrooms work great, wonderful, but if they don't, I think a Portland loo needs to go there. If the other bathrooms don't work out. So, any questions for me?
Any questions? No,
Okay.
thank you, Ward.
Thank you.
All right. Council, do you have questions for Jason about the Welcome Center? Brian?
Yeah, so was HBSC the only committee consulted on this redesign?
It was.
So tourism didn't get a chance to weigh in?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I don't exactly recall the process to get to this one design. Is this something that council had indicated?
Yeah, there were 8 initial designs that were brought forward. Those had been sent to HBSC for their review and then brought back to you for your consideration. And we were directed to move forward with number 4, however, with the modifications that were suggested, so which we took back to HBSC for review.
Okay. I think I was maybe absent at the last meeting you had on this topic. Okay, you want to hold off on discussion till after we hear the Lou presentation then, or do you want to just move forward?
I say we discuss now.
Okay, let's go ahead and discuss this now then. Comments, Val?
Yeah, I respect HBSC. I think that, you know, basically they are a commission, that is their job. I also respect Kate, who has worked at the Welcome Center many, many times, and her thoughts about the dirt and the noise that could come in from 6th Street. So my personal belief is to just move forward with number 4. Get it moving.
Brian?
I too very much respect the HBSC, and the HBSC has a very narrow focus. And honestly, this is a tourism building. It's the Downtown Welcome Center. Would have been really nice to get tourism's opinion on this, and I probably should have suggested that sooner. But considering the purpose of this building and the location of this building, I would have valued tourism committee's opinion on this just as much, if not maybe even more than HBSC's, given the purpose of the building. So unfortunately, we don't have that opinion, so we don't know what they would say. However, the idea behind the roll-up doors is, you know, they're not historic, obviously, but it's an accessibility for the Welcome Center. It potentially makes the Welcome Center more effective in opening it up, making the inside more visible to people driving by, walking by on the street. Obviously, it gives the potential for having indoor-outdoor space where you can have more music or events, or, you know, some wine tastings. There's a lot more possibilities when you have the ability to open that up. And I understand the concerns with road noise and with, you know, maybe dust or fumes coming in, but it's not like these doors are going to be open 40 hours a week. These doors are going to be open for, you know, a few hours during very select times of the month, like First Friday, or, you know, maybe a weekend for a few hours. So they're not going to be open all the time, letting in all of those particulates and noise. So I wasn't particularly excited about the mock-up that was done, because it didn't really do the vision of what it is justice.
Is now exiting.
The glass is like all black, when the rest of the glass on the rendition is like this light blue, so it really is not at all what it would actually look like. So I feel like that kind of got it off on the wrong foot with people forming their first impressions. I don't think it's going to look like that at all. I think it has a lot of potential to make the Welcome Center or the Visitor Center a lot more effective. So I would advocate for us still to include that. And while it's not, you know, compatible with colonial style, I would agree with that. However, this particular building, I mean, it's with this remodel, it's not going to look colonial style at all anymore with the colors and with the finish choices. So, you know, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Kurt?
I'm going to somewhat agree with Brian. My feelings on the Welcome Center is, if you've ever watched Alton Brown, it's a unitasker. And I don't think it necessarily really does that job very well. And the reason I supported looking at this option was because it would turn it into a multitasker. And as we've heard this week, it depends how you ask the question. I think if we had done that mock-up and you'd showed the opening, the door is really not the point of this design. The point of it is to have the opening and the exposure to the inside and the ability to have events. So I'm not crazy about the mock-up picture either, but the point was to provide more utility to that building and to provide more reason for somebody to come in. So I'm still not ready to give it up. Thanks.
Aaron?
So if council wants maybe a win-win on this situation, and garage door is important, but the concern of the HBSC and the colonial style of the building, one thing the staff has discussed is it may be most appropriate and best use if we did do a garage door, if it was on the north end, which would be where like the EV charging station is, provide an opportunity for more congregation and space there, and still utilization of a garage door to make it more multi-purpose. So that could be an option also, instead of having the garage door or doors on the 6th Street side, which would be the east side, to have it on the north side as an option.
Do we want people to congregate around their electric cars charging?
So during those special events, we would mark off the parking to provide for extra congregation space.
Yeah, I had a similar thought about the back with making a more of a patio space, but that's where the bathrooms are going to go. I'm not sure if you want a band playing right in front of the bathroom, so tricky. Val?
Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily like them opening onto that side. I would be more willing to go for that north side. I mean, I don't know when you have those kind of windows, if you could actually have a crank to crank them open so the sound can go out without, I mean, that is something that, you know, obviously if you've got something in there that's happening and there's sound available, people would have a tendency to walk in, but I don't like the idea on the front side of the garage door. So I would be more amenable to the north side.
Vanessa?
I was also considering that possibility of not necessarily on the north side, but potentially on the south side where the sidewalk is, to help bring more attention to that G Street area. I do know, although the buildings are separate, there is another building in the historic district that has a set of roll-up doors. And not only the business model, but I do believe that the design of that building has also really revitalized that space. And I think we have the potential to do that here as well.
Joel?
I had two thoughts. One is in terms of how often those doors would be open, and you're right, they wouldn't be open all the time in the winter time or when it's really hot out. I don't know if they're going to be open or not, but I would guess that it would be limited to when there was events that were occurring. The other thing is the functionality of the building inside with the employees. The other thing I was thinking about was the bathroom and the loo, and the number of bathrooms, which is important. We did some good work on those 3 bathrooms that would be outside. I'm not sure, given the social nature right now, the cultural nature of our city, if those concerns aren't valid in terms of upkeep and expense. And perhaps a Portland loo would serve even better. It would provide a high quality facility for all, and not just the present user that maybe goof it up for the next person, though I suppose that could happen with a loo, but not as probable. So I would like to consider that as well, and somehow find the same number of bathrooms if that's possible. Maybe they have to be accessed from the inside rather than the outside, but have that Portland loo outside.
Rob?
Yeah, I think that the issue of the bathrooms, I think we pretty much solved that issue, I hope, to the degree that we can look into the future. I think that the bathrooms facing out the back door, I think, was a really good choice. It kind of split the difference between potential having to constantly mitigate problems and yet provide enough public restrooms. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. I don't know that we need a Portland loo right there. As far as this particular drawing, I would definitely agree with whoever said it, that the roll-up door facing east, well, first off, It may not be a great depiction, but I don't know that that's the right side. And I might agree with Vanessa that I wouldn't mind necessarily exploring the south side of the building for that concept. Again, there's the issues of the dirt, there's the issues of weatherization, how energy efficient it's going to be in hot or cold. Those are concerns. But I definitely, on the front of the building, I would like to keep whatever look we have, whatever pseudo historic look we have intact on the front of the building. And if we were going to try to add this type of door, I might do it on the north or south. But as Kurt said, the north, there could be plenty of people who are appreciating First Friday who are charging their cars. So that may not be the best spot for it on the north side. Maybe the south side, but I definitely like the east side to have kind of a colonial look intact. And then if we wanted to make it, quote unquote, potentially more functional, maybe on the south side might be the way to do that.
Brian?
Yeah, I hadn't considered the north or the south side until today. But in looking at it and looking at the street view of the south side, I actually think that side could work better. It would have less noise. It would face G Street. And again, in the rendition, it's not accurate, but there's actually about 6 feet of landscape space between the building and the sidewalk there. So there is potential for some sort of patio space or a little deck or something there to kind of extend off of the roll-up door to the sidewalk. So I'd be interested in looking at that south side.
Val?
I know some people are set on the garage doors, but personally, I think you could almost do that with, I don't know, a French door or something without making it quite as big. I do. I'm just, we've been kicking this can down the road forever, quite frankly, and I just feel like it's important that we move forward. So, I don't know, I'm going to go back to what I've said all along, that I think that the way it is absolutely fine. I agree with Rob. We worked hard to get the 3 bathrooms back there. I think we just stick with that and see how it goes. Obviously, we're going to have another 2 Portland Loos downtown at different locations. And part of the issue I think we've had is we haven't had any back bathrooms. And so now there will be some dispersed around downtown. So I'm not so worried about the back. But I don't know that a rolling garage door is really what we have to do. I think if you really did want to do something, I'm just trying to think how many people are going to be in that building is what I'm trying to figure out working. How many workspaces are there going to be in that building?
Well, we'll have the workspaces figured out. We have the 2 rec individuals, part-time and full-time rec, and then also we have our 1 economic specialist that will also be present. So we'll have 3 to 4, depending on if we have also some temporary employees in there for workstations, and we'll be able to design those accordingly. Say, for instance, if you wanted to have a garage door on the south side, it would be that southwest corner that would be best. And it could open up into the sort of courtyard area in the rear that we have, et cetera, and that could potentially work. And it may be a better solution than on the north side. But we could work with a single garage door either on the north or the south side. It wouldn't be a double. We wouldn't have the space for double, but we would have the space for a single on either the north or the south side if you wanted to.
Brian?
So, originally I brought up the idea of the roll-up door, garage door, whatever you want to call it. There are other door styles, like Valerie mentioned, and I'm glad you mentioned that, the French door. I've seen some really nice kind of like paneled things where they kind of stack something like, so I'm not, my point is that it doesn't have to be a roll-up door, just something that makes it accessible inside-outside space. It doesn't have to be a roll-up door, but just, an effective solution to make that building better utilized.
Kurt?
Yeah, to couple on to that, if you've ever been to the French Quarter in New Orleans, this is a pretty common thing. And just like Valerie's saying, or like Brian's suggesting, the big doors. sliding doors, panel doors, something like that is what they use down there. It's more historic, and they don't really worry about the traffic going by, so I think that's a good solution. I would still want to stay on the 6th Street side if possible, though.
All right, it sounds like where we're at is that the majority is interested in having some sort of door opening, and so we just need to send this back to design and look at the space configurations of the building and the space and.
Sure. So council could, it depends on how much council wants to take a look at that, but we can get direction from you and say, if you say south side, you want some kind of larger opening, then we can address that, take a look at it and move forward with that, or we could bring it back to you after we've taken a look at the different door options for you. Jason's stepping up now, so I'll let him take over.
I have a lot of different direction here, which is why I'm concerned walking away. We can get back to our architect and see what they would charge us to come up with a few different ideas, because what I think I heard was definitely look at larger doors, perhaps not roll-up doors, but maybe some French doors on one side of the building or the other. But let me get some costs. If that looks pretty reasonable, I'll just move forward with a couple more renditions. They did that other one for us for free really, really fast, because I think I had like 3 days to get in front of the HBSC, and so we were trying to just get something to make it what it would potentially look like. But this will take a little bit longer. We'll probably be down another month or two while they work on that, but if the pricing looks reasonable, I'll just move forward with getting some additional renditions to get back in front of you, and then we'll take it back to committees, including tourism and HBSC again, if that works for you.
That sounds good to me. I have a quick question. Do you know if that wall that's inside that kind of separates the left room, is that just is it a load-bearing wall at all?
No, there's no load-bearing walls in that entire building. It's actually constructed to where you can take out all of the walls.
Fabulous.
Yep.
Options, huh? Too many
Options.
options. Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, I know you mentioned the French doors, but there's also another, I don't know what it's called, but it's another style of like full-length glass panels where they kind of stack as you open it. And I don't know what that's called, but it'd be nice to look at that option too.
Like sliding panels?
Yeah.
Got it. I have all those down.
Are you all otherwise okay with this colonial style design with the columns and the brick and everything? Okay. I hate it, but do what you want.
I'm not particularly fond of the columns myself.
All right, they like it though, so.
So hopefully this is an easier issue. So downtown Lou locations, council suggested the Osprey lot. We have taken a look at the Osprey lot. I know that the my directions are totally challenged. Northwest corner was suggested. In looking at this one, we're going to suggest that the center island is a better location for the loo due to a number of reasons. One is the height of the loo is pretty high. As we get closer out to that corner, it becomes a potential vision hazard, and we have a lot of foot traffic in this general area. We have quite a bit of room on this island location. I've got a couple of aerial views in the packet here that I want to kind of cycle through, where we can fit it into here pretty easily with very little impact to the entire parking lot. And it keeps it back out of the way from the pedestrians from the most part, but it also can be easily adjusted to where we're rolling in and rolling out, so it'll be ADA accessible. The second location is, we had tentatively talked about the Beaver lot on multiple occasions. This one is a little bit more challenging. It's a great location. It has both water and sewer. However, doing so without taking up a parking lot spot is going to be a bit of a challenge. So we have come to a location where we look at that little landscape strip on the northeast corner. We believe that it can fit in there quite nicely. Same situation where we can roll in, roll out. However, there might be the loss of one mature tree at this location. If we didn't put it here, we would actually suggest maybe taking out the parking space right to the south. and placing it in that location, as opposed to moving it to the islands farther to the west, as there's a lot of traffic here, and we don't want to put that large structure anywhere where that's not controlled. This island location is really good. It's a very controlled intersection. It's signaled both directions, which means that traffic's either coming to a complete stop, less opportunity for a pedestrian and vehicle interface. And with that, I would take your questions.
So on our slide 12 here, the suggested location is at the actual intersection of G and 7th next to that yellow car?
It is.
Okay. Questions, council? Brian?
Okay, on the first one at the Osprey lot, you know, when we were looking at the corner, there's like there's kind of a sidewalk bump out there to shorten the distance for pedestrians.
Yep.
And I think the idea was to kind of have it more where the existing Osprey lot sign is, which is on the inside of the sidewalk. So I don't know that I necessarily saw that being any more of a hazard with regards to viewing or view space as the one that we're talking about in the second location. That one seems, you know, on the corner is just as much of an obstruction, if not more. And then the other concern with the Osprey lot is that if we do have it down, you know, it's not very far. I mean, that might be, what, 60, 80 feet. I don't know that it's going to see the same level of use as if it's right on the corner there. It's just going to be tucked away just enough to where, you know, it'll still get used, but it probably won't be quite as visible to people in the surrounding area. So did you think that that corner is just not workable at all, or?
We kicked this to the city engineer and had him look at it because we were concerned about traffic. And there's a lot of pedestrian traffic on this end. We can go in either location. We just thought it would be better back off of the area, and I didn't think you wanted me to go move that sign, to be quite honest.
Okay, thanks.
Val?
Yeah, I would just like to say personally, I would rather not have it on the corner. Just for my own personal reason, I don't mind walking a little bit to have a little bit more privacy using the bathroom. So personally, from my perspective, I'm less worried about it being on the corner and have everybody know. I would imagine that, you know, you also kind of have to look at, oftentimes that is the location, like when we do art along the road, where there's a band is set up and everything is there, and I just kind of like it back a little bit. So that's just a personal preference. So I'm just saying, it's just half of one or the other. But I like the new location.
Are water and sewer lines, all things being equal, doesn't matter, or?
Yeah, at this location, water and sewer are not an issue.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I think that wherever we put any of these loos, we want them to see as much use as possible. So we basically want as many people to see them and know about them. There's really little doubt in my mind that at the corner of H and 5th, it'd be much more visible, and it's going to get way more use there. Yes, there is still pedestrian traffic, you know, down between the entry and the exit of that lot, but I think at the corner, you've basically got just way more visibility. I just think it's going to be used probably twice as much, would be my guess. So that's why I'd like it closer to at the corner, essentially, because I just want it to be used. So I want to essentially get our money's worth, and I want the people to get their money's worth and get as much utility out of these dollars as possible, and I think that's going to happen at the corner.
Questions? All right, I think we're done with questions, moving into comments, kind of overlapping. I think, is everybody good with the, what do we call it, Beaver Lot? Any issues with Beaver Lot being on the corner there? Brian?
As long as staff feels that it's set back enough to not obstruct view lines, I'm fine with it.
Okay. All right. So Osprey Lot. Valerie said her piece, she likes the middle. I'm good with the middle. Anybody else want to fight for the corner? Vanessa?
I also agree that I believe it should be placed on the corner. Not only does it provide higher visibility for folks that are out on the street that need to use a restroom, but it could also help decentivize any CD behavior that may happen if it's tucked too far away.
Okay, so you are supporting the corner. Okay. Joel? He's open.
As long as we get a bathroom, I'm fine. I can find it in either place.
All right, Kurt?
I would just concur with Joel. It's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Rob?
Well, I'm definitely in the corner encampment, essentially just because it's going to be way, way more visible from all the different sight lines, no matter where you are on H, you're going to potentially be able to see it. North on 5th Street, you're going to potentially be able to see it. You're in the Owl Lot, you're going to potentially be able to see it. And I don't think that that's the case. You go down in between you go a little further south, you're not necessarily going to see it from the Owl Lot. You're not necessarily going to see it from north on 5th or further east on H. You're just not going to see it. So, yeah, it eventually will be used by some people, but the other one is just, put it this way, if you had a hot dog stand and your family's income depended on it, and you wanted to sell hot dogs, would you want to be on the corner location, or would you want to be tucked further in between those two? In other words, you've actually had to make a living doing it, and that was the way you decided, which was more practical. I know which place I want my hot dog stand. There's no doubt it's on the corner.
Right there by the restroom.
I would say, I would love the hot dog stand on the corner, but personally, if I'm going to use a restroom, I'd rather walk a few steps down and have a little privacy. But it doesn't really matter in terms of just build it on the corner if that's what the majority wants. I'm just stating my piece. I personally like a little privacy, and I'll walk a few extra feet to have it.
Understood. Okay, well, we had 3 people speak up in favor of the corner, 2 who didn't care, and Valerie who supports the middle, and she and I will find the bathroom wherever it is. So we'll go with the corner. All right. Brings us to agenda review. So we are coming up on a special meeting today at 2:30. Then we have a business meeting next week, but we do not have a workshop because of the holiday. So have a safe and fun 4th of July weekend. July 6th business meeting, we will consider an ordinance amending the false alarm ordinance, an amendment to the false alarm ordinance. Then we'll have a resolution on an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT for the Allen Creek Road right-of-way acquisition, a resolution on the urban campground contract, a resolution to purchase fire apparatus replacement, a resolution on the food truck pilot program at Riverside Park. The next one has been moved, a resolution for a grant from the Oregon State Fire Marshal, a resolution to grant permanent easement to ODOT for sidewalk improvements, and a motion to for the findings of fact for those historic landmark designations that we did at the last meeting, the Ford Building, the Wonderbur, and the Clark McConnell House. And then appointing 2 members to the Collaborative Economic Development Committee. Questions, Brian?
Yeah, I don't recall the amendment to the false alarm ordinance. Have we discussed that, or where's that coming from?
I'm not sure. Did you want to cover that, Aaron?
The details of that I have not, we're still working on the background memo and it's on my desk for review. So as we talk about things, I'll see if I can pull it up here online and give you some additional information.
Okay, I was going to ask about the sidewalk improvements as well. Where is that permanent easement?
It's a tiny, tiny sliver of property up near the Welcome Center on the north end of town. And sidewalks are already constructed there. They're just redoing the ramp. But the property extends all the way out into the right-of-way as it is. So we're just granting an easement to ODOT for the infrastructure that's already there.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Give Aaron a minute to, did you find it already?
So it is minor nature. We're just changing the language that's in the ordinance. It's basically sort of a Scribner's error because we've changed the way we now have public safety as one thing. It was director, and the director had the authority to do certain things in that code. We're changing director name to chief, and that's the only substantive change. But we do need approval to change from director to chief.
Okay, so that's just a minor wording issue. Okay, then at our next workshop, we'll have the quarterly report from Tori Middlestad at the Destination Marketing Organization, DMO, permanent funding for public safety discussion, and I believe we are going to get some answers on utility fees, going to deep dive into that one some more in particular, but kind of review all the options again. Is that?
So on permanent funding, there were a couple of things that council wanted us to highlight, and JC can, oh, well, JC looks like he's ready to respond. Go ahead, JC.
So yeah, there's a couple things. Yeah, utility fees, some calculations that we already have and what that might look like if we went similar suit. So since we have water, stormwater, and some other calculations, we can potentially mimic those and kind of show you what that comes across as. And I know you guys asked for the top 20 properties that are potentially exempt from property taxes, but for anonymity and not necessarily picking and placing an individual. I'll probably give you that more in a summary form just so you can see the total dollars that we're potentially giving out and not give streets and names and a specific church or something like that.
Okay. So yeah, if you have specific questions that you want them to look into, if you could get that to staff before the workshop, it would help us from having infinite workshops on that topic.
Yeah, the idea is that we're going to be able to provide you with some scalable information that will provide for if a law enforcement sales tax is passed, this would be the additional revenue that would be required, and these are the funding sources that you've highlighted or identified that you want additional information on, including a potential future levy, including a utility fee, and what that extra might be. Say, for instance, a sales tax does pass, it's $8 million, but our target is 10. Where would you like to get the other $2 million? What would it cost if we did $1 million in utility? And what would the fee be if you did $1 million in a levy? Or let's say the sales tax does not pass, then we're looking at an $8 to $10 million gap you're trying to fill. What would the level of the utility fee be, level of special levy be, et cetera? So you can have that discussion to sort of see what the impact would be.
All right, and then please note for your calendars, we have a special training session on July 15th as a Friday. So block out some time if you're able to make that. Anything you want to get added to the agenda going forward or questions? Rob, then Val?
I got a quick question for Aaron, then another statement. But so on the subject of, okay, let's say for whatever reason the sales tax does not go forward, whether it doesn't make it to the ballot or whether it gets voted down, and now we've got the potential, we see how much a utility fee could potentially bring in. Is that the type of question, do you want to have X amount in utility fee, reduce our safety levy by X amount? Is that the kind of thing that we can put to a vote of the people?
Yes, if it's just an information inquiry question, you can, or would you be, we need to talk some more if you wanted to say, well, we're going to put a vote, and I'm not sure if I want to clarify your question. The answer is yes, you can send to the voters, we want to enact a utility fee, and you can send the utility fee to a vote. You have the authority to implement the utility fee. And so you can do a vote on the utility fee at a certain rate, and then you can also do a levy at a certain rate. So you can have that.
Yeah, I guess for the benefit of council and maybe for you also, what I'm thinking is that let's just say that a utility fee is, we'll say, very popular, or it's going to bring in a lot of revenue from sources that are now exempt from the sales tax. It may be that that's actually a really great deal for the public because we get to bring in a lot more money from sources that are now bringing nothing in. And I'm just wondering if it's the kind of thing that if we were to mix and match there, that could be popular. Now, if you, right now, you just throw out the idea of utility fee, obviously the public's going to be up in arms and say, hell no, our water rates are too high. But it also could be the kind of thing that in a mix and match situation that it really makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. To let the people decide on that, to me, would be kind of the sweet spot.
I think you bring up a really good point, Counselor, and that is in making sure through your discussions and moving forward with the ultimate decision you make, informing the public on why you made those decisions, whether or not you send it to a vote or not. A utility fee may be, for the reasons you mentioned, different people pay in, therefore you're getting additional revenue that we never got before from a different group, which will reduce the impact. Would be an important message to send on why you're choosing what you're choosing.
So the one, actually, Val, why don't you, I have something to go to the agenda, but you can go.
Okay, I do have a question. I know that there's several things coming down the line. We talked about the middle housing, and we kicked that to the UAPC. Are they bringing it up on the July 13th? Do you know when they're going to be discussing the middle code? I just know because they've kind of asked for some guidance in terms of what we might like to see them do.
Yeah, we're in the process, Brad and myself are in the process of putting together a memo for council that further identifies some of the issues that were addressed in your last business meeting. The majority, or 100% from what Brad and I heard and what you heard, were not associated with the middle housing code that was in front of you. It was associated with the zoning overlay that actually went into effect before you're adopting the middle housing. And so I wanted to get a memo to you. We've had a meeting with the Home Builders Association. We're doing some additional work from the standpoint of background and information to get to you with regards to the urban growth boundary and that transitional zoning overlay, which is really the cause and the root of what you heard, to then maybe provide additional information and direction to either the UAPC or to you on how you'd like to move forward. So we'd like to categorize and provide some suggestions on how to move forward.
So I'm going to assume then what you're going to be doing is sending us a memo on the overlay and zoning and the discussion that you had with home builders and to put that on a workshop, or?
So the memo, I just want to get first the memo out to you. Okay. And then if you'd like to have a further workshop, that's great. Or if you'd like to have a workshop now, we can schedule a workshop. But I thought it was important for you to first get the information. The information is going to be threefold. We'll address the middle housing, we'll address the urban growth boundary, and then address the transitional overlay also. So those are the three type of subject matters that'll be associated with the memo to provide further direction. And I'm anticipating that after that's in place, you may want to have a workshop on the transitional overlay and or the urban growth boundary discussion.
Okay, yeah, I would assume so. So yeah, okay, and then I had another question. This is just something I was just reading about because I know the middle housing code kind of came down through the DLCD, and there in July, there's another piece of that puzzle coming down from DLCD that has to do with the transportation and the climate friendly part of town and all those sorts of things. So how do we find out what's going on with that? I mean, just curious, because I do know that it's coming down from the DLCD in July.
I don't really know much about it, but I do know that a member of the housing committee brought it up at the last housing meeting, and it's Tom Bradbeer, and he also sits on the sustainability committee, and so I think that he was going to take that topic to that committee and start having that discussion. So that's all I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to work through its normal process, but if you'd like us to do a council memo on that upcoming legislation, we can do that also, if council wants a memo on that.
Well, I just got some information from another source, and like I said, I was kind of surprised that something was coming down, because July is not very far away. And so, yeah, and so I don't know whether it's just like the middle housing code that says you either adopt ours or this is going to automatically come in place. I don't know. It's obviously tied with transportation somehow, so I don't know, Jason, if you're aware of it or know anything about what's happening.
I'm aware that there are changes that are coming, but I'm not prepared to give any information today.
So I'd just like a memo, if you could find out or tell us where to go to find out more information about what it is, and because it looks like it'll have a pretty drastic effect, and so I just want to be aware of it.
Did you have something, Brian,
Yeah,
on that
just-
topic?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up. I just did a Google search for Oregon climate-friendly zones, and it brought up all the state pages, so I don't know that maybe staff needs to put the time into a memo if we could just look at that to start with.
So where did you find that?
I just Googled Oregon climate-friendly zones,
Okay,
and it brought up all the state pages.
okay. Thank you.
Rob?
So this just, I'm sure I'm not the first person this occurred to, but I think our last Wednesday night meeting, that was a fairly long meeting. We spent a small, at least a significant chunk of time placing two properties on our local historic district that were already on the National Historic listing. And to me, it just, in a certain, I look at that as a waste of time, meaning that we should take any property in the city right now that's on the National District and make it automatically on the city historic list. It just seemed to do them all at the same time, one time. I don't even, it could be, to me, it would be a consent calendar item. It's not even the kind of thing that we would necessarily have to scrutinize very closely, but that way we don't have to, you think about, there was staff time and historic building and sites time essentially utilized or wasted on preparing for that presentation. Then there was staff time again and our time again at that meeting, that Wednesday night meeting. I just as soon take all the properties, make one list, do them all in one fell swoop, and then us and future councils don't have to essentially waste time going over them, because again, the national criteria are more stringent than our local criteria anyway. So it just is a no-brainer to me. So I'd like to somehow move that along, whether we need a workshop on it or whether we can just do it at a Wednesday night meeting, unless someone has an objection.
Joel?
The commissioners actually talked about that and is in support of that, so.
They are in support of that? Okay, well, they could make the motion to present them all.
My understanding is, I know that when I was on the commission, we tried to do it at one point, and I don't understand what the holdup was, and I don't know how we're years later and it still hasn't gotten done, and we had to spend our time at that Wednesday meeting going over it. So if they can make a motion and have it done quickly, if we want to do it from that end, that's fine. If we want to take the lead on it, I just don't really want to waste time at a busy Wednesday meeting having to do that again.
Joel?
So if the staff could research, you could do it that way, or my understanding is you might be able to do it through the code also, and I don't know. But so that if it's on the historic district, it automatically is on our city property. So we could do it either, you could either vote on them and have them all included as a specific item, or we could change our process and just have it automatic.
Okay, it's fine with me to do them all at one. I was assuming that they wanted to kind of showcase each one, which shouldn't have been on that busy meeting with so many other topics, but.
I guess I could see, Mayor, I could see giving them the list, in other words, they have the list, and just making sure that they're okay, getting their rubber stamp that says, are there any of these that you want to take off for whatever reason? And they're probably not going to say yes, but getting them to say yes or no. Is everything on this list? Should we just move it forward? I suppose they can take one last look at all of them.
Who's the liaison right now? Is it Joel? You want to talk to them and provide some direction with
Sure.
that?
Sure.
All right.
And
We'll place this topic as an agenda item for one of their upcoming meetings.
Sure. That'd be an easy thing to do.
Okay. Any other topics for agenda? Okay. Well, I apologize for the long delay here, but we have successfully wrapped up our business here before 2:30, which was the goal today. So it's success in one way, but not in another. We need to adjourn this meeting, and we will reconvene at 2:30 for the special meeting hearing, and you do have a packet of information here in front of you if you want to take the time to look it over. So, motion to adjourn? Val?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Joel? Second from Joel. All in favor of adjourning today? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, see you at 2:30.